Yes, the day has finally come on MS Paints where not only am I going to paint up an army in 24 hours, I'm going to paint 2 armies. Yeah. Of course, these armies ain't just any armies. Oh no, let me tell you something, brother. These are the newish kids on the block because this is the first ever physical buy it off the shop shelves release by One Page Rules. So for this challenge, here beginneth the ground rules. Both armies must be completed in 24 hours. And there endeth the ground rules. So I will be using lots of really cheap tricks, some gimmick paints and shortcuts, but we will not be slap chopping anything because everybody's seen slap chopping stuff. I can probably slap chop this in 24 hours. I can probably do it in about 10 hours. I can probably do it in about 6 hours. It's not really a challenge anymore. And now here are my stipulations for the challenge. I will not be sitting in this same chair for 24 hours and doing this in one sitting. I'll do it in 24 hours, but not in one sitting. I am way too tired, way too sick, and frankly way too married to sit in a chair for 24 hours. So I'm going to do it over 3 8-hour days, which seems more sensible. And from your perspective as well, that is more realistic and more achievable. And I'm not going to be running a timer in the background or anything because you can just gimmick that and it has absolutely 0 value. So yeah, no timer. So that is basically the challenge. 24 hours broken up across 3 basically working days to get all of this done. And as you can see, there's quite a lot. So with that all in mind, what's up my movers and shakers? I'm Dave. This is the brand new One Page Rules starter set. This is also MS Paints, and this is everything done in 24 hours. Alright, so before we start slapping paint around, let's take a wee butcher's at these new fancy plastic pre-assembled One Page Rules models. As to be expected with pre-assembled PVC, there are some mold lines. This is a side effect of casting, and to be fair, it is a side effect of any kind of casting really. It's not especially egregious in any way. I can see them, sure, but I'm only going to bother filing down the ones that are really bothering me and I think will stand out at the end. The other 80% of this box is 3D printed. This is a demo box after all, so naturally all I need to do with this is break off the weird resin growths and move onto the priming outside. Or I would go outside if the heavens hadn't just opened. So I'll prime in the doorway and direct my aerosol out the door. This is a primed base coat of dark blue, like a turquoisey tint maybe. I will then spray these off camera from above with a pure white spray to create a zenithal highlight. Also primed off camera with the Robot Legion models, just straight black. Now to create our skin tone, we're going to use something called Coalia Green by Villainy Ink. Yeah, and this is a really potent and interesting wash. I guess you'd call it a wash. And it is enamel based, so we'll be diluting with mineral spirits or white spirit. Why are we doing this? Well, because I think it looks interesting, and it's a really powerful saturated colour. And because it's enamel and diluted, it doesn't pull into thick dark lumps in recesses and corners like a contrast or speed paint would. Sure enough, if you're careful and take your time with acrylic washes like that and speed paints, you can avoid that, but we're not interested in taking our time and being careful today. Next, we're base coating our Robot Legions. Now, this is a gimmick I've mentioned before and done on the channel when I did that Stormcast army a few months ago. 2 dry brush coats of Retributor armor will get you a nice saturated ready gold. However, 1 pass with the dry brush will get you something more tarnished and antique looking, a more green leaning gold. And also, technically, that takes half the time, right? For the weapons and shields and some details, I'll be using initially some Surcoat Silver from Two Thin Coats. However, when painted on over black and diluted, it was definitely going to take at least 2 coats to do it, so I switched over to the Vallejo Metal series, I guess, which is designed for airbrushes, but you can just pound this crap on and it'll evaporate so cleanly that you're left with crisp definition underneath, which is why I adore this stuff. After this, we make a choice that our capes on the Robot Legions are going to be black. Why do we make this choice? Because black can cover all this gold overspill in 1 coat. And that is the only reason we chose black. Okay, so the enamel wash on our Saurian Starhosts has dried, so now we're going to take a makeup sponge with some mineral spirits on and clean up our raised areas to create some light values on our little dinosaur men. Alright, so this is where the project really fucking hit the fan for me. So I want to give these guys like shiny white armor, like a star metal thing. I have some technical gimmick paints to do that, but even with the incredible bold titanium white from Pro-Acryl and using those AK Interactive marker pens that I showed earlier, I couldn't get this stuff to have a fully white coat, like fully opaque. There were always dark patches or whatever showing through. This is maybe 5 hours spent here, just banging my head against the wall. And that is why after coat number 2, I made the decision to use a metallic pen to paint the leg armor, because by doing that, I suspected I'd save myself a few hours down the line. But we proceeded with the shiny pearly gates paint, just because, well, we have to move on with that concept. Pearly Gates is by Turbo Dork and looks like it would work best over probably a white prime or an airbrush white, like a true white. It did work in this video, but it's certainly not as clean as I would have liked it to have looked. I've learned a lot from getting a lot of this wrong, and I'll try it again in the future, probably on some Tau. I'll probably try it on some Tau or some Gundam. But there is the lesson, so always do tests on stuff before you try and paint a whole army with it. So I do need to take a minute out of this painting binge to talk about the miniatures that we're painting and where they came from. Well, One Page Rules is a super lean, clutter-free alternative to the mainline games that everyone is familiar with today. I play it, me dad plays it, me mates play it, and when we do play it, we can probably play about 3 games in an afternoon, so. And it all fits, technically, on 1 page, which I would have here, but I took it home, so I could play at home. Now, after 11 years, the models and rule system is finally actually seeing a legit physical release. And that is basically what we are working on the workbench at the minute. And one of the reasons, and like a 95% share of the reasons that we are doing a 24-hour challenge, is that there is a Gamefound campaign starting in soon. The Gamefound that is launching on the 23rd of September is One Page Rules' first physical release, Grimdark Future Broken Truth. Keeping in mind the box that I'm working from is a pre-production like demo model that only has some of the models in plastic The final full release will have all plastic miniatures, I assumed pre-assembled as well. And the master pledge for this campaign will have the following: 77 plastic miniatures. That's why it feels like there's so many miniatures. It's because there is. There's also going to be tokens and dice. And I hope the dice in the final release are going to be the same size as the one in the preview box that I've got. Legit. These are good. These are good. I like these. And a playmat and terrain. Oh man, I forgot there was terrain in this. And tokens. Oh my god. What? Is that it? So, the realest important question is, how much is it going to cost? For the Master Pledge, which gets you everything that I've just held up and everything I'm working on the workbench, $180. I don't know how much a dollar is worth. Is it more or less than a yen? So in pounds, that is £135. Holy shit. I don't know if that's before or after tax, but okay. But $180 feels pretty, like, I hope the one-page rules guys don't mind me swearing, but like, $180 is pretty fucking legit. Yeah, so do check out those links down below. Do check out the Gamefound, and yeah, just have a little look, see what you think, see how you feel. I have had a few chats with the one-page rules guys, both in person and over video calls, and the word that gets kind of thrown around, not just the word, the vibe as well, is accessibility. And if you suffer like I do with cognitive overload when it comes to some tabletop games, then I think one-page rules is probably something worth your time looking at. You can head over to onepagerules.com. You can check out the rule set, see how you feel about it. You can do some army list building. You can even just play the game with the stuff that you already have, because one-page rules don't care about that. See how you feel about the game, and then just, you know, if the Gamefound's for you, it's for you. If it's not for you, it's not for you. But hopefully, you've at least discovered the wonders of one-page rules. With that in mind, and speaking of cognitive overload, I am going to go back to doing my thing on the workbench. So with some pretty sky blues and light turquoises thrown onto the lizard scales, I've decided I want a little bit more depth in their skin tones to bring out all these really lovely details a little more. So I've made myself a custom mix of Caribbean Ocean, Grim Black, and Speed Paint Medium in no particular ratios. Just mash it all together and see how it vibes, and then thin it down a little bit more if you need to. For their copper armor, a healthy dose of Crusader skin, and a couple of dots, maybe even one, of Grim Dark Black. No dilution. And at this point I realized and had to face the reality that I had to do something, anything with this white star metal armor that I'd sunk a lot of time into. So Grim Black speed paint and some medium allowed me to thin and thicken it as needed to get a fairly decent wash on there. It worked on most of the models, some of the bigger ones and the flatter areas, not so much. And to add some flair where I can, cheap and quick flair that is, I'm badly panel lining the Lizard energy shields with a homemade ink wash. Yeah, I want these guys to have those cool, like, glowing jackal shields from Halo. Yeah, line all the indents with white ink. give it a white ink misting with the airbrush for a basic glow. Then we take a speed paint or contrast paint or diluted ink and gently spray over the whole thing. You probably want a dark base coat under the ink, by the way, otherwise it won't pop as much as you'd probably like. In all this excitement, we forgot about the Robot Legion's army. Oh dear, right, okay. The cloaks are getting an hour's work with some coal black to highlight up the capes. Coal black is a pretty awesome paint for highlighting black, especially given its oil paint-like malleability. If we had time, we would lean into that and do some more blending, but there are like 25 dudes to do, so we're really quickly sketching on the raised areas of cloth here and there. And the paint also has a satin finish, so the way it catches the light should hide some of the scratchiness. We'll see. I remember at the last minute that I should probably throw a little bit of Nuln Oil on the metal parts of these guys just to get some more depth in their upper body. I'll leave the legs. It's the rule of the shower. Gravity sorts your legs out in the shower, man. We're going to repeat the ink wash glow effect from earlier. It is easy to get carried away with this, by the way. So this poor tripod is going to look pretty fucking wild by the end. But hey, we're doing this for the first time. For next time, we know to dial it back a bit. Alrighty, with pretty much everything painted, it is time to do bases. Yeah, bases. We've teamed up once again with Gatehouse Gaming UK, and they've sent over a shed load of 3D printed jungle plants for the Saurian Starhosts, but they've also sent a pot of quick basing stuff called Bionic Sands, so we'll take a look at that properly in a minute. I'll be doing the space lizards first, since they require a little bit more finessing. I select a bunch of different plants, some jungle critters like frogs and butterflies, which I don't know if I'll have time to paint. And for the bigger T-Rex base, I'm going to add some base filler with lizard tank bark. I could be dry brushing these plants white and doing some old chump shag trick with them, but since I don't want to risk any breakages this late in the game, I'm going to airbrush on some white ink and then give them a gentle sweep in with a mixture of green speed paints. Okay, so this approach to basing, I do it a lot on this channel. Often I'll paint over these ground covers, so I've got more color control. But in this case, we're just going to raw dog it. Apply some PVA glue to your base and then throw on the ground cover. I'm using mostly Gatehouse Gaming UK stuff here, with a little sprinkling of some Geek Gaming Scenics base ready range to give a little bit more texture and a little bit finer coverage around the edges. And as usual, I'm going to soak them through with rubbing alcohol. And then some very watered down PVA. We will go on with that with a pipette and swamp the bases. The alcohol that we did before this allows the PVA to permeate the surface and soak fully through. And this should all dry nicely like concrete. The Robot Legions are an infinitely more simple affair. We're coating our bases with glue like before and then dunking them. And that's kind of it. Good job. Same again, spray soak them through and then seal with watered down PVA. So since I had a little spare time at the end, I decided to throw on some grasses and tufts on the Space Lizards. They felt a little bit sparse, and brightening up and thickening up the base always seems to help with that kind of thing. They were by far the hardest of the two armies to do, but still, I imagine a couple of weekends spent leisurely painting them would yield some lovely results, and they'd be way tidier. The T-Rex I mostly did with just some speed paint for its skin off camera, and the big old frog on the throne was a similar deal. I think they only took, like, for the two of them an extra half an hour to sketch some different colours on there. The Robot Legions also do the job nicely. I really like the combo of the black base coat and coal black highlights. That's the combo I'll use again. The glowing guns could easily be done better, but I'm looking forward to trying this technique in the future and understanding the layering of it all properly. And I really dig the bases on these guys. Just that simple glue and dunk royal sand stuff is amazingly weird looking, I guess, but it's quite striking. Did I learn a lot in this 24-hour challenge? Yeah, I did. I think I clocked in just under the number in total. I learned that I definitely need to do more tests off camera, like in prep for this, but at the same time, we don't really have time when we do YouTube. We just have to learn on the job. Everyone's kind of doing stuff on screen for the first time. So thank you hugely to One Page Rules, not only for sponsoring this video, but also for creating a top-end rule system that's completely free to use. Once again, worth checking out if you're interested. And of course, thank you to my gorgeous Patreon community who continue to keep me motivated and continue to keep the lights running around here. Right. Cheers. I'm out of here.